Good afternoon. I'd like to call to order the meeting of the Western Riverside Council of Governments Executive Committee. At this time, please note your attendance on the screen, please.
Sorry, Madam Chair, I was still checking everybody in. Here we go.
Yep, Corona, Temecula.
Moreno Valley, if you could please register your vote. Thank you.
Okay, it looks like we have 21 with no, with nothing else. We got 21 people.
Tell them you're here.
So we certainly have a quorum.
We have quorum.
Thank you. So we'll move on to, if you join me for the Pledge of Allegiance, given and led by TAC Chair Chris Lopez, please.
Thank you. If you could join in Pledge of Allegiance. Ready, begin?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
It's really tough for you. I see we have one person for public comment. Do we have anybody else for public comment as well? We have Arnold San Miguel.
Thank you, Chair Wright and members of the Executive Committee. On December 5th, SCAG and the Southern California Leadership Council will host our 10th annual Economic Summit at the LA Hotel in downtown Los Angeles. The agenda includes SCAG's economists giving a briefing on the regional economy. It includes a panel tackling Southern California housing crisis. As you know, the governor and the state legislature have been working on housing, but what can our local elected leaders, local governments, and developers do to produce more housing? This panel will discuss that question. The keynote will be by F. Noel Perry, the venture capitalist and philanthropist founder of Next 10. Next 10 is a nonprofit organization that works on the nexus of the economy, the environment, and quality of life, trying to bring solutions for the region. After Mr. Perry's keynote, there'll be a panel on strengthening the region through Connect SoCal, and that is the long-range regional plan, just showing how implementation of the long-range regional transportation plan makes for a better economy. And then the Economic Summit is free for all locally elected officials, city managers, county CEOs, and tribal government CEOs. No need to drive, and I don't recommend it. You can take Metrolink, catch the subway and the Dash, and get your way up to the hotel. And I would also like to bring to your attention this Thursday, the SCAG Regional Council, pending review, discussion by the Joint Policy Committees and the Energy and Environment Committee, will recommend, the RC will consider approving release of Draft Connect SoCal and the PEIR, and the Regional Council will also be considering submitting the draft regional housing needs assessment to the California Department of Housing and Community Development for HCD's 60-day review. Thank you.
Thank you, Arnold. Next, item 4, minutes from October 7th meeting. Does anyone have any comments on the minutes? Hearing none. Janice, would you please set the system for vote?
City of Canyon Lake. Is it not working, sir? Oh, yes, thank you.
Okay, we have 21 yeses and 1 abstention. Next, item number 5, consent calendar. All items listed in the consent calendar are considered to be routine and may be acted in one motion. Does anybody wish to pull an item for discussion? Hearing none. Janice, would you set the system for the vote? And that looks like that's approved, 21, oh, excuse me, 22. Reports, going on to item number 6A, is a report by Aaron Sassy with the League of California Cities. Good morning. Oh, good afternoon. Excuse me.
Afternoon. Chair, committee members, thank you for having me. Aaron Sassy with the League of California Cities. Before I go into my report, let me get this going. I just wanted to give a couple of items. On November 14th, we have a webinar that's basically a more extensive overview on the bills that were signed and vetoed by the governor. So if you want to hear more after what I give you today, please make sure that you register for that. And then on November 18th, we have our next division meeting. I know that's the third Monday, but Veterans Day is the second Monday, and the city of Corona is hosting us, which is very exciting. So I hope you can all make it out to that. We have about 2 days left. Yes, 2 days left before the nominations are due for our Outstanding Public Servant Award. So if there's somebody, one of your colleagues, council member or mayor, that you want to nominate, please make sure you get me that application that I sent out by the deadline. With that, I'd like to go through just some of the bills that the governor did sign and veto. These are some of the bills that we did support. So SB 212 had to do with elections and voting, basically allowed general law cities the ability to adopt two majority winner voting methods for local elections, the top two primary and ranked choice voting. The governor vetoed this. We were supporting it because it just gave the flexibility to general law cities that charter cities already have. SB 531 had to prohibit future sales tax agreements between local agencies and retailers with warehouse, sales office, or fulfillment centers that result in a shift of sale taxes from other jurisdictions. We supported this because basically we said if you want to incentivize a company, a developer, a fulfillment center for coming into your city and you want to use your own funds, you should be allowed to do so. The governor did veto this. AB 344 would have created a grant program for up to 50 cities with some matching funds to expand the continuum of care programs for employment programs for the homelessness. We supported this. The governor unfortunately did veto it. I know a couple of our cities already have employment programs for homelessness, so this would have been helpful for them. So maybe we can work on that again next year. SB 5, I know I've talked about this bill extensively. It was sort of the new redevelopment. The governor did veto this one as well. I know we supported it. We thought it was kind of our only chance that we had to bring back this sort of redevelopment type program. Senator Bell is pretty committed to bring it back next year. It will be his last year. So I do think that we'll try again, but with the governor not being on board, I'm not really sure what our chances would be, but he did veto that. These are also bills that we supported that were chaptered, which is good news. So AB 1637 would have allowed all of the cities to get your unclaimed property without actually having to file for it. So that's definitely making things a little bit easier if you do have some of that unclaimed property out there. SB 230 had to do with use of deadly force training policies. It would really standardize your policies. You'd have to post them online, but it creates kind of a statewide use of force policy and through post. So that was also signed. AB 485 by Medina, I know that we've also talked about this one. We were opposed to this. It basically created a whole list of requirements for you to incentivize warehouses within your city that were very burdensome. You've had to put a lot of things on the internet, provide a lot of information to the public. Unfortunately, the governor did sign this, so you will be required to post all of those things on your websites and provide the information. AB 1184 had to do with public records. Basically, you're going to have to keep, or you would have had to keep, all of your electronic emails and everything for 2 years. Fortunately, the governor did veto that, so that's definitely good news because to us, it was an unfunded mandate, but they said it fell within the CPRA, so it didn't require any sort of funding for all of you to do this. There's 3 bills that the governor did sign that have to do with ADUs. AB 68, AB 881, and SB 313. All 3 of these bills put additional requirements on you. You'll have to approve ADUs. You will not be forced to have parking. You could put ADUs on a parking facility and not have to require parking with these. It eliminates the owner occupancy requirements, so basically it becomes a business within your cities for these ADUs. So the 3 bills are AB 68, AB 881, and SB 13. So you should all be looking at those because it definitely ties your hands, and they were all signed by the governor. AB 1763 would expand the existing density bonus law to require a city or county to award a developer significantly more density, additional concessions and incentives, and greater allowable height of 100% of the units in the development if they're restricted to lower income households. So another housing bill that does tie your hands. The governor did sign that one as well. Also, AB 1483 will require all local jurisdictions to provide public information regarding all of your zoning ordinances, development standards, fees, affordability requirements. You have to put them on your website. That was also signed by the governor. Obviously, there's no funding attached to that either, so just additional work for your staff. SB 330, I know I also talked about this one a lot this past year, the Housing Crisis Act of 2019. The big part of this one that we had issues with was the project-specific fees. So basically it puts a 5-year period, a 5-year moratorium on development-related fees. It was amended significantly, but you still can't charge project-specific fees for it. So we were opposed to that, but the governor did sign it. Like I said, November 14th, we have a webinar that will go over a lot more of this in detail, some of the political issues behind it, but there was a lot of housing bills this year. A big part of the ADU bills that we were opposed to is that they keep changing the laws, but not giving us any time to really react and comply with them before they change them again. So it's just definitely making things more challenging, and I think next year will be another big housing year, so we have to stay tuned for that. But I do encourage all of you to sign up for that webinar to get some additional information. But with that, thank you for having me. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Erin. Are there any committee members that have any questions or comments for Erin? Guess you did a great job.
Well, thank you. Very uplifting.
Thanks, Erin. Next item, 6B, is a presentation by Dr. Judy White on current activities of the Riverside County Superintendent of Schools. Kind of weird the way that was written.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
I'm looking forward to sharing an update of what's happening in Riverside County. I want to begin by saying thank you. Serving on part of the board, listening to your decisions, just grateful that we have such focused leaders in the seat. So I just wanted to start off by saying thank you. I also want you to remember when we talk about Riverside County, at a glance, we serve 428,992 students. And if I could bring your attention to 3 groups, 286,000 of our students, 66%, are socially economically disadvantaged. And we have 15,955 identified as homeless and 2,778 with foster youth, because many of the decisions you make, you have to consider the population that we are serving. This is my 42nd year in the field of education. I've had many, many seats on this journey, and I try to make decisions that are data-driven, observation-driven over my experience, and these are some of the reasons why we have identified certain initiatives. Our pledge for Riverside County is that every student in Riverside County will graduate from high school academically and socially prepared for college, the workforce, and civic responsibility. Prior to me coming, the civic responsibility was not included, so we changed that to make sure that our students are exposed to civic engagement as well. Our pilots have worked. When we look at AVID, many of you have heard of AVID, Advancements via Individual Determination, and some of the other projects that are existing, and that's why we continue to try to do pilots throughout the county and then build on those pilots, then have the districts take ownership to replicate. The first pilot that we did bring forward, and I shared with you the first time I came, is Project Moving Forward, which helps students learn vocabulary as well as literacy skills in order to be successful in school. We are finding out that some of the new data points that students who were involved in Project Moving Forward at kindergarten, they were transitioning to English at a greater level. The special education students were able to be mainstreamed at a greater level. Chronic absenteeism was our second initiative, knowing that students need to be in school. And then there you'll see by just a small group of students how we improved and reduced their chronic absenteeism by 67%. The California Department of Education did reach out to us and gave us a grant this year for early literacy partnership. It's very interesting that this is the year that our superintendents in their meeting decided that they wanted to focus on literacy across the county. So in your cities, in your supervisory areas, anything to do with literacy, we're on board. So if you want support, if you want to partner with us, we want to make sure that that is a priority. Adopt a School, that was one of the initiatives that I brought in. The first year, 292 partners in 153 schools. The second year, 302 partners in 221 schools. And then this year, up to date, 410 partners in 264 schools. Our goal is for every single school in Riverside County to be adopted by a business, a faith-based organization, or a social organization. And so we have an opportunity for whoever's adopting that school to sit down with the principal and they decide what is that relationship. We're not saying money, we're talking about relationship. Some people volunteer in the schools, some people do have resources that they give, but more importantly, they're visible and then they understand what's going on in the schools and they show that they partner together. The Teacher Village was an idea, and we're still working on that because I want to see a county-wide teacher village. But one of our districts, Lake Elsinore Unified School District, is piloting a program for January 2020. And they're starting with one house for a teacher that they built, but they're actually converting a school to housing. So this is something they're going to do. And Desert Center had already had teacher housing because it's so hard. It's a small district, but people don't come out to Desert Center, so they have housing for the teachers on that particular campus. But our vision is to be able to have a teacher village somewhere in Riverside County where we would have like 100 homes that's dedicated for teachers. Oh. I did hire some community outreach ambassadors because there's so many programs across the county and people have to hear about them. You can't just have them on paper, you have to have them in action, and sometimes you need voices to go out to the community to share good information. The Million Deliberate Acts of Kindness, initiative number 5, is something I shared with you the last time I was here, and we're advocating to measure 1 million deliberate acts of kindness. We're still in the thousands, so we want to get, I think we have like 35,000. We started slow, but we do expect to reach our goal, and we'll keep moving forward until we reach our goal. But there are some districts that have really embraced acts of kindness: San Jacinto, Menifee, Palm Springs, Corona Norco, Romoland, and Beaumont. They actually have their own internal acts of kindness. Another initiative, student internship program. We wanted to make sure that 1,000 students were placed in some type of an internship on last summer. We did meet our goal. Some of the internship programs were paid, others were unpaid, but the students actually benefited from that experience. We've had a math pilot. In our math pilot, there was a 26% increase on their standardized test. Civic engagement, we're increasing the growing in achievement, and also expanding our visual and performing arts. We did not have a visual and performing arts department prior to my coming to the Riverside County. Now we have that, and so you'll be hearing more about that. And of course, civic engagement for all schools. Many times people are aware of what we do for college and career readiness, but they're asked about what other programs. So School of Career Education, there are 9 programs, 13 instructors, and they serve about 300 students there. And these are some of the programs that are offered there: phlebotomy, welding, nursing, medical assistant. So we have that in our School of Education. Now that's quite different from CTE, which is our Career Technical Education program, and we serve about 17,000 students in that program, 15 districts, 15 industry sectors, over 100 CTE courses leading to multiple programs of study. And so again, noting that we have student interns placed, but it's 54 sites throughout the entire county. Riverside County, we established actually 2 new units this year. One is Leadership, Innovation, and Outreach Services. And some of you know Dr. Michael Rowe, and he's the one that's leading this particular work. And we also have a School of Education, and within that School of Education, an Office of Equity and Access. Now, as a county office, we have been authorized to credential teachers. So we have teachers going through our program, and they can actually receive a credential through our program. In the leadership, innovation, and organization, these are just some of the things that they're doing. Increasing athletics, we believe that if students are running and track and doing some things, they might not have time to be vaping and smoking, because we want them to become active. And then just partnerships throughout. Mentoring, we're going to be trying to identify those students that are not at grade level at 3rd and 9th grade and assign mentors to them. As I talked about the School of Education, we currently are serving more than 2,000 candidates in that program, and that includes a coaching network and support for new teachers. The Equity and Access Office, I'd like to bring your attention to the unconscious bias training that we feel is a high priority throughout, and we have also partnered with the CTA, the Teachers Association, to provide some of that training. We collaborate with the National Center for Urban School District Transformation, and there are 25 schools in 5 districts. One of my favorite quotes for this year is, "There are risks and costs to action, but they are far less than the long-range risk of comfortable inaction. Our problems are man-made, therefore they can be solved by man. No problem of human destiny is beyond human beings," and that's what I believe. And so, as a closing note, actions we need, Riverside County Office of Education, from WRCOG, we want you to embrace acts of kindness by modeling it, but also if there's a way to integrate it into some of your activities in your cities, we encourage you to do that. If you want us to come out and to capture something by video, because you know something is happening that's showing an act of kindness, we will have our team come out and video. We want you to promote the Adopt a School program, because as I said, there's 515 schools in our county, and we're more than halfway there, but with your help, we can have more businesses reaching out to adopt the schools. I want you to know that gradual improvement is taking place countywide. In December, you'll see a dashboard that talks about test scores. We are more than test scores, but we still believe in test scores. So we're moving in the right direction as a county. I'm suggesting that you might even consider mentoring a student in your local community. In January, I'll be getting my first student that I'll be mentoring as a county superintendent, and you'd be surprised the impact that it has on a young person if you can just spend 30 minutes with them once a month. And so this is what we're looking for. We want you to provide regular student and parent recognitions at council meetings. Participate on district committees when there's an all-call for district participation from the community stakeholders group. We encourage you to participate. And then this last thing, attend a local school district sports events. And some of our cities, the stands are full every football game, basketball game, and there are other parts of our county that no one comes. The kids are out there working their hearts out, nobody's there. So my husband and I had made it a date night to go out to some of the games, and you know what, it really works. And so that concludes my update, and I'm available for any questions.
Thank you, Dr. White.
Thank you.
Are there any questions from the committee?
Thank you.
Rick?
Yeah, Dr. White, on the 1 million acts, deliberate acts of kindness, is there a website or a form or something that can be registered by folks that actually
Yes.
enact these acts so it can be counted?
Yes, there's a website, and we'll send that to you. Craig? Yeah, we'll send that to you, and then that way you can encourage, because thousands of acts are happening all the time, but people just have to get used to counting it and going online in a quick form. And we give out prizes, we do different things, but we want to bring the level of awareness about being kind intentionally. It's one thing to say no to bullying, but it's a better thing to say we want you to be kind.
Thank you. We have Temecula in the queue.
Yes, you mentioned about the literacy campaign you have going.
Yeah.
Do you have things in place for kids with dyslexia, you know, identifying and or helping them through figuring out how to read?
Yes, we do have a department. We also have a special education department that you have experts in that area. So the theme for the literacy is any age, any stage. So that means any age, any stage, and that means whatever you're challenged with, we would like to support. And so you could email me, and then we can get you connected to the right people if there's a group that needs help in that particular area.
Okay, District 2.
Yes, Dr. White. My question, you had that slide that said students served 428,992. That is all the students in the public schools in the county?
Yes. And that it does include our charter schools, because charter schools are public schools as well.
Okay. Just thought the stats were very interesting on that.
Yes.
And so we have an 88.9% graduation?
Yes, that is our current graduation rate. Yes.
Higher than I thought it was.
Oh, it is, and it's actually higher than the state. And if you go online to the state data, please pay attention to our different groups, because for our African American, Latinx, in some areas is by 20% greater, 15% greater. So we are working hard.
Okay, City of Riverside.
Dr. White, just want to thank you for your leadership. I can see a lot of momentum that has been created by you coming in and focusing on several of those pilot projects. I love start small and build on that success. Yes. And that's what I see you doing. So thank you for your leadership across the county. In terms of the presentation, it'd be great to have a copy of that presentation that staff could forward out to us.
Yes.
As well as potentially, it was mentioned earlier in the Random Acts of Kindness, but also I believe in the Adopt a School program, there's a way online that people can sign up. So we could forward that out to our business community through our networks to encourage them to sign up to Adopt a School. So I'd like to commit to doing that as well.
Okay. We'll send the information to you. Yes.
Thank you. Marco.
So I'm absolutely delighted that you're focusing now on the arts. I think it's fantastic. I too am anxious about to get involved in the Adopt a School, because we actually do a lot. And in case you want to go to a game, Norco has the #1 softball team in the nation.
Yes.
And in California has the coach of the decade. And this Friday, we are going into our 36th year of making the playoffs. So you can be my personal guest. I'd love to have you come.
Nice. You know that date night?
Very nice. I love it. Okay.
I guess, I did want to mention too, it's good to see that some vocational sessions are being scheduled, and when the trades come back, I think that's imperative that happened in our school system.
Yes.
So thank you for bringing some of those vocational items back into the curriculum. I'm sure that there's many interested in that aren't really the college material and still see some light at the end of the tunnel. So yes. Thank you for that, and thank you for your presentation.
Thank you. And also, Chairman Wright, the state actually places all the large counties in order. So for the 25, the largest counties, more than 25,000, we are second in graduation rates, just 0.3% behind Orange County.
Well, congratulations on that.
So, and we're competitive, so I hope next year I'll be saying we're #1. Okay? Thank you.
Thank you so much. That's a receive and file, and we'll go on to item 6C, presentation by Jeremy Goldman of Southern California Edison on Edison's public safety power shutoff program. Mr. Goldman.
Thank you. Happy Monday. Jeremy Goldman with Southern California Edison, and I wanted to give an update on our wildfire mitigation program. So the last few weeks, wildfires has been one of the top issues dominating the state. I don't need to tell anyone that. You can see 10 of the most destructive wildfires have happened since 2015. So what are the utilities doing about it? Last year, the state adopted SB 901, which required all electric utilities to file their wildfire mitigation plans. It includes all sorts of different activities, situational awareness, hardening, and different operational activities. It's really a three-pronged approach, bolstering our situational awareness capabilities, enhancing operational practices, and hardening the electric grid. Weather stations. We've actually in the process of installing weather stations in all of the high fire circuits throughout our service territory. Actually, this is data that anyone can go on our website and take a look at. I have the links at the end of the presentation. Also adding high-tech fire monitoring cameras. If you go to alertwildfire.org/Inland Empire, you'll be able to see those. They've been placed throughout our service territory. Advanced weather modeling. We have a team of meteorologists working 24/7, 365 days a year to model the weather 7 days out, seeing what's going on, red flag warnings, what's happening. Inspections. We're also in the process of inspecting every piece of overhead equipment in high fire areas. You've probably seen a lot of the social media posts about helicopters throughout western Northside County. 9 times out of 10 is probably Edison out there inspecting lines, not the government looking for illegal pools or rooms, but I can assure you it's Edison. We're taking pictures using LiDAR cameras to scan the equipment. It takes a heat-seeking picture. You can see where we might have issues, broken cross arms, issues with our poles. So, and that's what we're doing. Vegetation management, this is a big one. Trees and power lines, just a bad mix. Probably don't realize, but we inspect nearly 1 million trees a year. We have tree trimmers on staff, again, 24/7. So if there's anything you see, trees impeding in the lines, please call us. We'll get someone out there to take a look. Covered conductor. In certain areas, we've installed a rubberized conductor, has a rubber coating over it. So in the event that a tree might fall into it, it's not gonna spark. We actually just installed some out in Supervisor Washington's district over the past few months out near Awonga, right at the 371. So if you want to take a look. Also adding different reclosers into the system, make it automated, so in the event that we do see something, we can remotely turn off the lines. Undergrounding, that's another part of our program. Again, there's pros and cons to undergrounding. Very costly, environmental impacts. We're in the process of analyzing where does it make sense to install it throughout our service territory. Incident command, we have over 500 folks trained in different ICS ready to respond to our emergency operations center. Now, public safety power shutoff. This has actually also dominated the news over the past few weeks. Got it. Hearing a lot about what happens up in PG&E, where they actually turn off entire cities and counties, entire grids all at once. When Edison has to do this, we actually try and limit the amount of customers impacted. So it's by circuit, it's not by grid. We're also in some areas able to partial de-energize, so we're not turning off an entire circuit. So it's something that we don't take lightly. It's made at the highest levels of the company. We see this as a last resort, as something we have to do because of wind speed, wind gust, temperature, humidity. Again, there's a variety of factors that go into this. Weather modeling, like I said, we have a team of meteorologists working 24/7 modeling the weather. You could see red flag warnings. We have a fire scientist on standby as well, looking at different data. Also, we have boots on the ground. So in the event that there was a circuit on our watch list, we actually have one of our operations team members on that ground with a handheld weather station looking at the weather. So, maybe it's someone who knows the area well, so they can say, this is normal weather for the area, and we think it's going to improve, or vice versa. Also working hand in hand with our first responders. Again, there's a pretty comprehensive notification process for a PSPS. One thing we've really asked all of our customers is to update their contact information regardless of where they live. We can send notifications via email, via text, via phone calls. You can see 4 to 7 days out is when we might start seeing something that's out of the ordinary. 3 days out is when our IMT might activate. And 2 days out is when we start making notifications to our customers and our public safety partners. So it's pretty comprehensive. I know we've been working with a lot of our partners, area cities and the county on a notification process. How do we do this? Who gets notified and whatnot? And again, those notifications continue throughout the whole process as we watch and monitor our different circuits. Another question is, when would you re-energize our line if we did de-energize the line? Well, we'd have to wait until the weather had cleared up. Usually we'll give a time frame, and we'd have to actually go and patrol the circuit. I know December of 2017, we actually did de-energize the lines up in the Idlewild area. We had 4,000 customers without power for about 30 hours. One of the challenges we had up there was that access issues. We had to bring in helicopters to patrol the line. So in certain areas, we'll have to do that if we ever have to de-energize the line, but also have to make any repairs that might happen. Also, about a month ago, up in Mammoth, we actually did de-energize Mammoth and Bishop area because of 88-mile-per-hour winds. And once the winds died down, crews went out there and they saw multiple poles and wire down. So we feel we did prevent a wildfire up there about a month ago. Finally, we've also held a number of community meetings throughout our service territory. direct mailings to our customers in Riverside County. We've hosted meetings up in Idlewild, in Hemet, in Wildomar, in Corona, in Eastvale. We've given presentations and updates during public comment at different city council meetings. If you'd like us to come back, please let us know. We can definitely coordinate that. So definitely one of trying to get the word out there as best we can, social media ads. Really a big thing, what a regular customer can do, update your contact information, make sure it's up to date. Finally, again, you can have an outage anytime, any day. Car hits a pole. You never know when it's going to happen. You find after sporting events, we have most of the most incidents on Railroad Canyon. I think happens quite a few times actually after the Super Bowl. So, but yeah, be prepared. Have a plan. Make sure you're ready. Again, a lot of information, links available, se.com/wildfire, also se.com/PSPS. A lot of information on social media. So, go ahead and peruse those different links when you have a chance. So, and that was everything I had. More than happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. I see District 2 is in the queue.
Fast, but good presentation. Lots of information. Very fast. Couple of questions, and I know it's a sensitive topic, and I know that we don't like to spend a lot of time, but these power shutoffs. My question is, when you did a very brief on the underground, if there was more underground, would there be less likely of power shutoffs?
It's really hard to say because I think in certain areas you probably wouldn't be able to underground just because of the way the environment is. Also depends on the voltage of the lines. Obviously, the higher the voltage of the line is, it's probably going to be more expensive to underground. There's a lot of different factors that go in there. I couldn't even give you a cost estimate because we have different voltages in our system from subtransmission, transmission. It really depends on the location. I would hate to speculate.
As we have, as you well know, we have a very controversial issue in my district. So I have cities against cities. So
very much so, yes. Right.
So to me, that's a big issue. Fortunately, we didn't have the power shutoffs, but my question really is, if there was more undergrounding, would we be able to have less shutoffs, wherever it is? I mean, in theory.
It's possible.
Doesn't affect the wind doesn't affect the I can answer it.
I guess I should say thank you, but the presentation was good. Lots of good information.
District 5.
Yeah, that's kind of a follow-up on her question, Jeremy. Are you familiar with the highest voltages that you're able to go ahead and put the insulation around now? Like you talked about doing some in the 3rd district. Is it around 110,000 volts or 10,000 volts? Is it the lower? Can you tell me what
I've seen so far is distribution. Which is the lower 66 and below.
66 and below, okay.
Right, so far. Yeah. It is possible you probably could do transmission, but I've not seen anything planned at this point.
All right, thank you.
Norco.
So first off, thank you very much. I didn't used to understand why you were butchering our trees in Norco below your power lines. I now actually appreciate it, and I also appreciate the fact that you're giving us hundreds of trees, and I really appreciate that. You're not aware of that, are you?
Well, I know we have the program. If we trim a tree, we'll come in and replace it. So
it's part of our urban
I'm glad you're taking advantage
program.
of it.
So we really, really appreciate it. And you have a representative came out, explained to us why you had to do that with the trees. So it really took a while for us to get it, but we understand. The one thing I want to leave is that trees and power lines are a bad mix. And the reason I'm saying that, of course, is we're concerned about the high transmission lines going through the riverbed, and because Norco basically is a sea of green becoming surrounded by an ever-growing sea of concrete. And so we're very concerned about fire danger in Norco. So I wanted to just sort of leave with that statement. Thank you.
Thank you.
District 3.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Jeremy, good presentation. And of course, as you're aware, because of and the mountain communities that are all in 3rd district, I have some familiarity with what you're dealing with, as well as the complaints about helicopters. Last week, representing the Board of Supervisors, I was on a couple of conference calls. One involved the governor, and another one subsequent to that, a different group of supervisors. But the issue keeps coming back of, and I think you already addressed one of my questions was regarding the re-energizing, and I know the inspections now that have to be done before you can do that. The other issue was, what is the plan in place when power shutoffs affect individuals who require equipment, life support equipment that is, electrically powered? What can be done? What plans are in place to safeguard the health and lives of those folks?
Sure. So that would be a medical baseline customers, how we classify them. They have a whole separate type of notification system where they have to, we send out notifications and they have to, send a response back that they have a plan in place, they have backup. If we don't hear from them, we'll actually send someone out there to make sure that they have a plan for any type of outage. And that goes for any kind of outage, a maintenance outage, car hits a pole, whatnot. Also this year, the governor just signed, I believe it's SB 167, which deals with exactly that. And there's some, going to be some programs in place for those types of customers can get battery backup systems that pretty much for nothing. So still trying to flesh out how they go about applying for that, but there's a lot of programs right now that are coming for those types of customers.
And does that customer or resident need to initiate that process to achieve that status with Edison, or do you have a way of already knowing who those folks are and you initiate that process?
So the customer would need to sign up for the program. It requires a doctor's signature, and I believe they need to renew it every few years.
Can you send my office the form that
Yes,
would, so
absolutely.
that we can, if we reach out to folks, we can alert them to that
Sure,
requirement?
absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next, Calamasa.
Thank you, Jeremy. Appreciate the presentation. A couple things you mentioned. You're currently doing the high-risk line assessment in wildfire-prone areas. Is that information available to the public, or that's something that you guys keep internal for your risk assessments? First question.
You're talking about the inspections we're doing?
Yeah, the inspections in the high-risk areas, and I wonder how you're evaluating that and getting that information back out to the public.
So we're out there inspecting our, well, let me first back up. So last year, CAL FIRE put together high fire maps throughout the state, and it showed 33% of the Edison service territory actually falls in the high fire areas. As far as the inspections, no, that's internal, information is internal only. If there's a certain area you're concerned about, let us know. We probably could give you a high-level overview as to what we're finding out there.
My concern is that I think people need to know if they live in those high-risk areas or not. And if there's a way for them to find out what kind of risks
So if they do live in a high-fire area, I mean, there's been a number of different mailings that have gone out to them, so they should be aware.
Fair enough. Second question is that you've mentioned to us, if we see something in our jurisdictions, when we talked about trees encroaching on power lines, we should say something, and that's a great thing to do. Is there a place where the public can go and give that same information to Edison, saying, hey, I'm on such and such street, and I think these trees are just simply too close?
Yeah, absolutely. If they go to sce.com/outage and just fill out an inquiry, they can say that they see what they're seeing and give us a location. They can also call us, 800-611-1911.
Excellent. And are you communicating with the local public works departments in our jurisdictions
as much as we
and
can.
asking them to be on the lookout also?
Absolutely, yes.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you. Marietta.
Hey, Jeremy. So on the whole topic of undergrounding, when you underground, you also have to have pretty big vaults that are underground also. Do those vaults ever fail and blow up?
Sure, yeah, we've had issues, yes.
As a firefighter, I can tell you, yes, they do. So it's not always, when you underground, it's not like the whole wildfire thing is going to go away if we have Edison underground all their stuff.
You're trading another set of issues, pros and cons to both.
Yeah, so. and that's what I'm trying to point out is if you underground everything through environmentally impacted areas that don't clear brush because of environmental regulations, you're still going to have the problem because the vaults will still blow up and they'll still cause fires. So I just feel like sometimes the utilities have become the whipping boy for our wildfires. They've been going on for many, many years, and they've gotten worse because of our fuel management issues. And I think it's great that you guys are doing everything you can to try to address and reduce some of the potential for the ones that are actually caused by wires down. but I can attest that there are plenty of other reasons that we are having brush fires, and they're not all the utilities. That's all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
San Jacinto.
I think what we can all admit here that we've had conversations with people who are a little upset about the turning off of the power. And I think your presentation was absolutely excellent. It's good to know this information. My question to you, though, is this. You said that they were now able to shut the power off remotely, right, with the new stuff that you're putting in. Now, all of us sit up here as elected officials, and we know that people would really love to take down our grid. How much safety, am I right? How much safety are you guys doing? I mean, I know children could probably hack into these things now. So what are you guys doing for safety precautions for somebody to take down the grid? Obviously, if you're able to do it remotely, so is someone else.
Actually, yeah, that is a big issue that's actually come up. And if you look on our website, we're in the process of hiring cybersecurity analysts left and right for that exact issue. So it's something we're working on. That definitely opens up a whole new issue.
Thank you. Thank you, Jeremy. Any other questions? Don't see any, so thank you very much for your presentation. I appreciate it. And that's a receive and file. We'll go on to item 6D, presentation by Casey Daly with an update on the PACE Program's administration agreement and an update on the stipulated judgment requirements for Renovate America.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, members of the committee. Casey Daly, Director of Energy and Environmental Programs here at WRCOG. Just real quickly, we have two updates today to talk about. One is a request to amend the administrative agreement between WRCOG and Renovate America. And the second is to provide an update on the implementation of the stipulated judgment requirements. Before I get going, just very quickly, the WRCOG PACE program provides financing for energy efficient renewable energy and water conservation improvements that are then prepaid on property owner's property tax bill. So the first topic to discuss today is a request to amend the administrative agreement between Renovate America and WRCOG. As part of the agreement, WRCOG is required to authorize in writing the ability for Renovate America to work with another bond issuer outside of the HERO and California HERO program. And earlier this year, territory that was previously exclusive to other PACE providers under a different bond issuer, the CSCDA Open PACE program, became available. And those 23 jurisdictions are currently not part of the California HERO program. And so Renovate America had approached WRCOG with a request to authorize the ability for Renovate to go work into those 23 jurisdictions being outside of the California HERO program. And so what this agreement would, or this requested action would do, is to allow for Renovate to go work in those new jurisdictions. And as part of that agreement, WRCOG would receive a nominal fee from Renovate for any new projects that originate in those 23 jurisdictions. And then over time, as those jurisdictions are added into the California HERO program, those cities will revert back to WRCOG. We will become the primary bond issuer for those jurisdictions, and it'll open that territory up for our commercial PACE program. So the second item to discuss is just wanted to provide the Executive Committee with an update on the progress that's been made on the stipulated judgment that came out of the Riverside County District Attorney's Office. And so this is just a summary recap of going back to early August when we were informed that Riverside County District Attorney's Office had come to a settlement with Renovate America. At our September Executive Committee meeting, you all decided to form an ad hoc committee, and that ad hoc committee has met twice since its formation, one in September and then one again last week before Halloween. And so wanted to come and just give a quick high-level overview of the progress that's being made. Again, just to recap, there are approximately 46 requirements that come under the stipulated judgment. We have identified them as activities that are already currently in place, activities that are already in place but require some modifications, and then activities that are not required by state law. And then a little bit of a further drill down, we categorized the 46 requirements into these 6 that you can see here. And what this chart really is to show is the percent complete by Renovate America. So at our first meeting, Renovate came and gave a presentation on the 23rd of September to touch on these different topics. And at our last meeting last week, you can see the progress that's being made. And so what the idea is that we have a third meeting scheduled for early December, just before the stipulated judgment requirements are all kind of due. And we will be meeting again with the ad hoc committee and providing updates to the board moving forward. That concludes my presentation. I'm happy to answer any questions that the board may have. Thank you.
EMWD.
Well, actually, I was on for the other one.
Oh, you were?
No, I don't have any questions.
Okay. Sorry. I didn't see you up there before. Anybody else have any questions for Casey?
I have
Comments?
questions. I just have a comment from the committee.
Okay.
So we sit on the ad hoc committee, myself and a couple of other our members up here, and we've had nothing but good cooperation from Renovate America in what they're trying to accomplish here. And basically what they're trying to accomplish is take a program that is really beneficial to 99 out of 100 people and taking care of the one person that's not. And making sure that we don't have openings for people to take advantage of. And what this really boiled down to was people at the base level, which are the contractors themselves. I don't know if anybody's out there had a problem with a contractor before, but there are people out there that will take advantage of a program, and this is a way of, and we applaud the district attorney for working with Renovate America to put these things in place, because we're going to have a model program that other programs in the state can use. So we've been really pleased with the progress, and we look forward to the 100% completion mark for all of it coming up. And so thank you, Casey, for all of your hard work in working with Renovate America to solidify this program.
Thank you very much.
Okay, Norco.
I just want to piggyback off of this gentleman next to me. Fantastic job, in my opinion. As the son of a contractor, I know contractors that are good. They get irritated when another contractor is not so good, and they have to go in and fix it and charge people. Rick, I have to hand it to you and your staff. The coordination between everybody has just been phenomenal, and I'm looking forward to getting that 100% mark. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
And I'd like to add as well that how impressed we are on the significant progress that's been made with regards to the whole issue and working through it. So again, I want to thank my colleagues for agreeing to be on the ad hoc committee and getting through this process as quickly as possible and still do our due diligence. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
With that, anybody else? So we have 2 requested actions on this item. 1, approve and authorize the executive director to execute a First Amendment to the WRCOG HERO Program and California HERO Program Administration Agreement. And 2, approve and authorize the executive director to execute addendum to number 2 to the WRCOG HERO Program and California HERO Program Administrative Agreement.
Can we do those together?
Can we do those together? I think we're okay with that.
Yes,
so
you can do them together.
Please set up do I have a motion? I do have a motion and a second. If you will, I have City of Banning was first motion, second was City of Moreno Valley. So with that, please vote. And that is approved by 21.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next, item 6E, presentation by Chris Gray with an update on TUMF construction cost index adjustment. Good afternoon, Chris.
Good afternoon, members of the committee. I'm Chris Gray, Director of Transportation Planning for the Western Riverside Council of Governments. I'll try not to talk as fast as Jeremy because I have
thank you.
I have a habit of doing that. But I'm here to talk to you about my personally favorite thing, the TUMF construction cost index. So to give everyone a little bit of background on this is since the inception of the program, there have been a number of Nexus study updates. They're done every 2, 3, 4, 5, in one case 7 years. In between Nexus study updates, we provide you with information on the construction cost index, which is basically how construction prices have increased over time. So our admin plan says we have to come back to you every year and talk to you about the CCI. And I had been at WRCOG for 6 months when I brought it forward the first time, and I remember it being voted down like 1 to 20 or something like that. So, but we're back here again because we're gluttons for punishment and we enjoy doing this. But I do want to just share with you the background of the fee, how the Nexus study was implemented, what the fee levels currently are, and how this will provide some additional funding for the program. So in 2016, we completed a Nexus study. It went through the committee process and it was formally adopted in 2017. And you had, when you approved the Nexus study, you gave staff direction to implement the Nexus study fee as requested, but make 2 changes. The first thing you asked us to do was to reduce the retail fee, and the reason for that was our finding from our fee study that the retail fee in our region is much higher than adjacent regions like San Bernardino County. And then the second thing you asked us to do was phase in the single family fee for over roughly a 3-year period. So this slide, if you see the column that says current TUMF, that's what the fee levels are right now. Because of the phase-in on the single-family fee, and I'll talk about the effects of that in a little bit later, the full single-family fee is not going to take effect until July 1 of 2020. That is already scheduled to occur. That's part of the TUMF ordinances you all have adopted, and whether we take any action on this today, that fee increase will still be in place. So what the CCI is essentially stuff costs more, labor costs more, materials cost more, and it costs more to build the projects than when we did the Nexus study. As I said, the CCI has been a part of the TUMF program since the beginning, and over time we've standardized the process on how we do it, and we look at 2 key factors. One is there's a national CCI that's put out by the Engineering News Record. It is a compilation of construction costs for all projects completed across the United States. And then we look at local data on home sales as a proxy for land values. We average the 2, and based on the latest analysis, which our consultant did, it's about a 5% increase. I'm going to show you that along with some Caltrans data on recent Caltrans projects, which is state specific. So the blue line is the ENR CCI. The yellow line is the home values. You could see a big up, a down, and then a steady back up. But the cost of labor and materials has been relatively constant. That's the top blue line. I call your attention to the green line because even though we don't do this, we have seen some significant cost increases in the last, I would say, 3 to 6 months for labor and materials. In particular, things like steel, skilled workers. I thought Dr. Judy White talked a lot about technical education, and Chairman Wright talked about trades. We have a very significant lack of skilled workers to work on public works projects, and part of that is it's a lack of workers, but also everyone who has that trade is busy doing something. So we are in an unprecedented time of, we, for example, have seen more industrial development in the past year than we have for several years before then. The home building market, single family, multifamily, we're seeing significant activity across the board in all of the private sector, plus institutions, plus public sector. And that's one of the reasons that's driving up labor and materials costs. So we had brought this forward to our various committees. This was brought to the Public Works Committee, the Technical Advisory Committee, the Admin and Finance, and they directed us to do 2 things. One, they wanted us to implement the CCI's calculated with a phase-in of the single-family residential, mirroring what was in the Nexus study, and keeping the retail fee at its current level, which is $7.50 a square foot. So what does this mean? Well, if it's implemented, we're going to generate about $2 to $3 million per year at our current fee collection levels. We're currently collecting about $60 million. We collected about $65 million last year. We're on target for about $60 million this year. And so, for example, in Calamasa, Cherry Valley Boulevard could get an extra $2 million. Bundy Canyon would be eligible to access another $1 million. Temescal Canyon Road, between the city of Corona and the county, could get an extra $1 million. And across the board, all of the projects would be eligible to access additional funding. So one of the questions you're going to ask is, well, isn't this going to make projects more expensive? Is this going to increase the cost of development? The answer is yes, by a very small amount. So last year, we completed an update of our regional study on impact fees. We looked at impact fees charged by all agencies across the region for different development types: single-family, multifamily, retail, service, industrial. This CCI increase will increase total fee burden of each project by about 1%, and total development impact costs are all less than 1/10 of 1%. And this is based on prototypical development types across the whole region. We have some gentlemen from the BIA who will be speaking on this, so one thing I wanted to acknowledge is that's based on a prototypical house price, but I also want to say that the home prices across our region vary significantly. So home prices in Hemet versus a new home in Murrieta or a new home in Temecula are very different. So we also wanted to share with you, well, what if a person has a $300,000 home? What's the impact on them? Well, total project cost is still 1/10 of 1% of that price going up. So it's $400 per home on a $300,000 home. If you're buying a $600,000 or $700,000 home, it's the same dollar amount, and percentage-wise goes down pretty significantly. So in our opinion, these costs are not a significant burden on housing. They do not significantly raise the cost of development, and they provide a significant benefit to the program. And so I just want to show you what happens when you don't increase the fees. So by deferring the single-family fee for 2 years and then phasing it in, we estimate the program has lost about $5 million. And the way we calculate that is we take all the permits that came in, multiply that by the fee that was collected, take that same number, multiply it by the fee that could have been collected, and when you add that up over 2.5 years, it's about $5 million. So over that time, we would have collected $50 to $60 million a year. The program's lost out on $5 million. So with that, Madam Chairman, we have a series of actions asking the committee to implement this. I'm sure you'll have questions, and I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Are there any committee members with any questions at this time? We do have 2 speakers that would like to speak. The first one being Damian Fussell, I think. Hope that's it. From BIA.
Thank you. Easy to sit closer. That was a long walk. Anyways, good afternoon, everyone. As mentioned, my name is Damian Fussell, Deputy Director of the Building Industry Association, Riverside County. Thank you so much for letting me speak today. Some of you have already heard me speak in committees, and I hope all of you got a chance to see my letter. As you all know, we are in a horrible housing crisis right now, and whenever costs go up, it makes it so much harder to get that American dream of homeownership and to solve that housing crisis. We certainly appreciate Mr. Gray's comments about how this fee is very small, but any fee amount can be damning or horrible to any type of development. When we look at building permits, we see that there's a huge decline in houses being built, which all goes to the housing crisis. As a lot of you know, our governor put a mandate on us to build 3.5 million homes. And if that doesn't happen, we see different cities such as Huntington Beach getting sued. We also know that even if you don't want to go by that 3.5 million, which a lot of you may say that that's just astronomical, impossible to get, which even if we do go by that, there still is a need of about 180,000 homes to be built a year. We're well below that. Since the recession, we've averaged about 80,000. Just last year, we did 110. That is still at best half of where we need to be. This is just another way of making it so much harder to get to those homes. It was also mentioned that WRCOG lost money by not implementing this before, right? Well, the problem about that, though, is if people don't build, you don't collect those fees, right? So the BIA and I would argue that if those fees are up, sure, if you built the same amount that you built in that time, sure, that would be the amount that you lost. But that you just wouldn't have that type of building, right? Because it would be so difficult for the developer just to break even to build. So we don't think that that is a fair argument to make. A little bit of background, I'm sure you all know who the BIA is, but I just want to touch this before I go. We represent over 400 members, have about 50,000 workers that are represented by this, so this is a big deal. We're speaking for a lot of people, and we really urge you to vote this down. As Chris mentioned earlier, you guys ultimately voted this down before, so we hope that will happen again. My associate, my colleague Clint Lorimore, will be speaking more on the specific details, but anyways, thank you all for your time. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. And that's a segue into Clint Lorimore from the BIA as well.
Doesn't he wear another hat?
Yeah.
Hello, good afternoon. Well, thank you for hearing us out today. And like Mr. Gray, the TUMF is absolutely one of our favorite things to come and speak on. It's not, just so you know. The TUMF, as my colleague Damian Fussell was just talking about, fees. Doesn't matter if we're talking about a small increase, a big increase, all of it adds collectively with the different jurisdictions. So everybody, what we see a lot of the time is siloed thinking with different jurisdictions. Everybody says, oh, I need to take care of this one thing that our jurisdiction, our agency is focused on. And but everybody doing that, when you add that up, it becomes real dollar amounts. Even the example earlier that this would be $2 to $3 million per year. Sure, it adds to the coffers, but that money comes from somewhere. That absolutely comes out of the pockets of developers. In the end, that is passed on to the consumer in higher house prices. These increases also, if you create a standard model of a pro forma that a developer utilizes, a third of it is going to go towards fees, and then a third is going to go towards building costs. So it breaks down into thirds. And so what this actually does, you multiply it by 3 because it goes out, and that is the actual cost that is passed on in order for the pro forma to make sense for the developer. We are in the middle. We are not there yet in terms of the TUMF actually being implemented. We are phasing that in, and which we appreciate as an industry, which developers appreciate. What we have seen with this phase in, let me look at my numbers, and it was included in the letter that we sent to you in July of this year, we saw a $273 increase. Now with this proposal, with the CCI, that's $332 additional per door, for a total of $605. Not small money per door. We appreciate what was shown with the different jurisdictions and how it would cost different things to different areas within the county that we're talking about. This does make a difference when we're trying to make it just under the mark billed to the FHA loan limit. This makes a difference. Lastly, this is discretionary in nature. That's why the CCI is being brought forward. It's for you as policymakers to determine whether or not to put this forward. And right now, we're 24% down since last year.
Thank you, Clint. Okay, I see District 2. Thank you.
I certainly understand what has been expressed by those from the BIA. We're in a very huge dilemma, a huge pickle that we are put in by this state, and jeopardizing some of the cities that aren't going to be able to meet the RENA numbers. I want to thank Mayor Bailey for his efforts on leading the way on this. But with this number that we're all going to be given of these houses that we have to produce in our county, it is unfunded for the transportation infrastructure. And this is the biggest challenge that we have, is people are not only complaining the cost of our houses, but then the poor infrastructure. So we're juggling on how do we meet this challenge, and don't charge more for houses, but yet fix the infrastructure. And that's a dilemma that we all are having to face. And so this is a very difficult situation, but we have to be able to have affordable housing, not just houses. There have to be where people can afford to purchase them. And so that's the dilemma.
District 5.
Chris, a couple of technical questions. If I went and built an ADU, we just talked about 3 bills dealing with ADUs, and I built one in my backyard, do I pay a TUMP fee on that? And if I do, which one is it?
Actually, I'm sorry, Chief. You do not, sorry, because we had taken action about a year ago to exempt ADUs from TUMP fees. We have several exemptions for different types of housing projects. So, for example, anything designated by the state as low-income housing or affordable housing is 100% exempt, and we also offer fee reductions for projects in areas adjacent to transit. So specifically, you would pay no TUMP fees on your ADU.
Okay, second question. Now, along with that new bill, and I can't remember the number of it, that allows, and the state overrides any local jurisdiction to allow any single-family home to put in up to 2 rentals in there if they can fit them in. How do those fit in? Especially if they're not necessarily fit into that affordable housing.
Well, still in that case, if it's our test is very simple. If it's classified by the state as an ADU and the local jurisdiction considers it an ADU, then no TUMP fee is paid. If, for example, you are simply subdividing your lot and it's not an ADU, then you would treat that in that particular instance as likely a multifamily dwelling unit. Every circumstances are different. So but that's kind of how we would interpret the plan.
Now, I don't know under this new law if it's even where we subdivide it. It's basically you can put up to 2. You don't have to show that you have the parking or the utilities or anything else. So in another way, we're adding all these impacts. Everybody in ADUs or all these other rentals that are going to come in there, they all have cars. They put impacts on all the infrastructure and everything too, but we're not getting the money from that. So it's kind of backloading the other side too.
Okay, we have Beaumont.
Thank you. Yeah, it's definitely a difficult dilemma. I know that the ordinance does allow for fee exemptions for affordable housing. So that's one thing to consider. And as Supervisor Hewitt brought up, we're going to be increasing the impacts on single-family residential units by adding second and third units. And so where is the money going to come from if the second and third units are exempt from TUMP fees? So it just seems to compound the problem if we continue to move forward without increasing.
Correct. I mean, I can't really speak to traffic impacts associated with ADUs. I can share with you my perspective as a planner, and just Supervisor Washington loves when I tell stories, but let me just tell you a quick story. I actually have the smallest household on my neighborhood. There's 3 people of us living in a large home. That's my wife, my daughter, and I. All of my other neighbors have their grown kids living with them, or their parents living with them, or in some cases, my next door neighbor, their grown kids and their parents living with them. Hence, they have 7 cars. So I would just say, as a planner, part of my thought on ADUs, at least in some communities, they're essentially just going to be accommodating people who are already there, because that's the issue, is that our persons per household have increased significantly. If we look at recent development, it's not uncommon in some areas of the county, and by the way, just for disclosure, I live in the county. We're building these very large homes that can accommodate 6, 7, 8. Sometimes, just on my street, there's one house I think that has 10 people. So I would suggest in some instances, not always, that these types of extra units could very well be occupied by people who already live there, but I have no data to support that. I'm simply speculating. I would just say that as a policy decision, the board had acted to not to remove them from the fee calculation, and it turned to be, the state has done it anyways, so we simply took action before the state did. But I would say that's a very small part of our, the vast majority of our residential permits are traditional single family and traditional multifamily. We issued nearly 6,000 residential permits. About last year, I would say 3,000 to 4,000 of them were single family, but we have seen a unprecedented number of multifamily units, and most of them are traditional, subdivisions and apartment complexes. So to date, this issue has not come up to any significant level.
Thank you.
Riverside.
One just clarifying question on the methodology used in the CCI. I think it's the CCI. So it was mentioned by BIA in terms of supply demand, and so the projection that was used was supply and demand part of that. So housing price goes up, number of units goes down. Was that a part of?
So a couple of things forecast? Is when we're reporting the dollars lost, it's actually based on the number of unit permits that have already been paid. So it's not a projection, it's an actual number. But I would simply say this: we don't believe that increasing the price of a home that is of upwards $300,000 to $400,000 to $500,000 by $400 is going to substantially change the demand for those homes. The BIA thinks otherwise, and they're entitled to their opinion, but we would say that there are a number of factors that determine home accessibility. For example, affordability. Changing the interest rate by 0.25% on a mortgage has as much, if not more, impact on that. And then I would just add one final point. When we did our fee study, we found significant variations in fees charged by the jurisdictions, but we also found a lot of instances in which jurisdictions use other methods to pay their build infrastructure. So to Supervisor Spiegel's point, I personally pay thousands of dollars in property taxes, and I just paid it for CFDs. And so we have seen communities, for example, that don't charge as much an impact fee and others. And how are they paying for it? The developers are taking out CFD loans. So that homeowner is paying for that anyways. So it's a matter of, do you charge the money now? Do you have them pay it off in a long-term bond? Are you paying for it through your sales tax? Or are you paying for it some other method? The bottom line is, this stuff is not free, and it's costing more as time goes on. And if you don't collect it through the fee, you have to collect it some other way.
And I agree with you. The point is that we're not going to know until the market's going to figure this out. We're not going to know until we impose this. And so what I would ask is, we've seen what Edison's doing in terms of red flag warnings and being able to try to anticipate or at least bring back the issue when it does arise. And so maybe we can come up with some type of reporting mechanism that when housing units get to a certain level, it would come back to us to be able to adjust. Is that possible for us to be able to either rescind or to continue the CCI at a certain 6-month interval, or when we have the final numbers for the year? So just some type of system in place so that we can prevent maybe the downturn in the housing market if it does occur, so to speak.
Yeah, our administrative plan says we have to bring this back to you every year. Mm-hmm. So you get to go. So we have a mechanism already that says I have to come back to you every year. We simply had not done that because we'd adopted a Nexus study, and that gave us a period of.
So it's coming back next year.
It's coming back next year.
And we'll be able to see the trend from year to year.
Lakeville Snore.
Thank you. Hey, Chris, you had a slide that talked about a couple of the areas would receive $1 million. Can you go back to that slide?
Sure. Jen? Keep going.
I think it was in the very beginning.
This one?
No.
This one? Oh.
Yeah, the Bundy Road. I think that's what it was.
Yes.
Yeah, so I was wondering kind of how you kind of came up with those numbers.
Sure.
Because, I mean, it's all in zones, and certain zones obviously are building more houses than other zones. So I was just curious how this was going to, these numbers. I'm just,
So very simple. Cherry Valley Boulevard's about a $40 to $50 million project in the TUMP study. They would be allowed to get another $2 million. So 40 million times 5% is 2 million. Bundy Canyon's a $20 million project. Temescal Canyon Road's a $20 million project. So to your point, these are not funding commitments at this point. These are all ongoing projects now that are either at the point they're going to start requesting money, or they could request money in the foreseeable future. There are other projects, so there may be like Elsinore projects as well. We wanted to provide a representative sample.
So again, the funding is done by zones.
Correct.
Okay, so how would, I understand what you're saying about the cost of these projects, but I'm not understanding where the dollars are coming from. So where would this additional money come from? So would you be able to show me on a slide that from the projects that were built that weren't the additional funds, is that where this money would come from?
So if the CCI was implemented, that means all the values in the Nexus study go up, which means that if you have a project that's in process, you have the ability to ask for additional money. Whether there's money, actually all of our zones currently have available funding. We are anticipating more funding coming in through the zones. Have I done a detailed modeling to say the Southwest zone would get an extra $1 million? Based on the level of development of that zone, very likely.
Okay, I was just curious about where this was coming from. So just a couple comments. One is we're never going to meet the governor's numbers. We all know that. So we might as well give up on that thought. I don't think that $400 is going to change. It still doesn't make houses. We're talking $300,000, $400,000 houses. These aren't affordable. So we're not going to solve that problem with that. So $400 is going to make a difference. I'm not a fan of fee increases at all, because in our TUMP, those of us that are building houses, we're building houses. And that's why I mentioned the zone thing, because if we're building houses in our zone, then there's money for the zone. Okay? And that's why I was a little concerned about these numbers, because I just had concerns.
And your zone is building. We have, the zones with the most activity are the Northwest Zone, which is Riverside, Corona, Europa Valley, Norco, and Eastvale. That zone is growing significantly. Southwest Zone with Lake Elsinore, Wildemar, Murrieta, Temecula in the county is growing significantly. And then the Central Zone, which is Murrieta, Paris, and Moreno Valley is growing significantly. So those zones have money. And we have projects that are in need of additional funds, but I also want to say in Bundy Canyon, we brought that up because it's maxed out its funding right now.
Okay, so I mean, obviously there's a lot of concerns with this. This is a no-win for any of us, because if we build affordable houses, that means we still have more people, and they haven't contributed anything to this. That's right. So we're making the people that can afford contribute to this, and we're still not solving any of the housing issues. So it's just a comment. I don't know. So.
Norco.
Thank you very much.
He's not in there.
Sorry, I'm a chatty Cathy tonight. Just to kind of disagree with a little bit, 40% of Norco is rentals. And the 2 units that they want to build essentially erase all of our municipal codes, and what they will become, remember, they can rent them. So a family may live in the house, but now they can make additional income by renting those units. They can also rent their garages. we have allowed the single-family dwelling in the last 20 years to become what's called a compartment home. I mean, why else do you have 3 garages at a house? Why do you have a bar area where you have gas, electric, water? Because you can close a door, you can put up a fall wall, and you create a place for another family to live. The problem with all that, of course, is schools aren't going to get any money for the additional children. How are we going to do public safety? How are we going to find... I said this a little earlier. You know, a lot of people don't really know what the definition of a third world country is. It's when too many people strip the ability for services to provide, and then those services become super expensive. So I don't really know what the answer is, but one of the things that upsets me about the organization, the housing industry, is they're supporting getting rid of the single-family housing and building the apartments because they know that's another place people will build. If they would support single-family housing, I'd be a little bit more, okay, I'll hear it. But my problem just as an elected official is I've got to provide schools, help provide schools. I'm very active, police, fire, all of those things. And now what they want us to do is one of the few funding sources that the governor hasn't taken away from us yet is these TUMP fees. And of course, NORCO is contributing, getting a lot of money because of it, a bridge and Hamner Avenue and stuff like that, as a lot of the cities are. We as cities are caught between a rock and a hard place. Maybe if we could sit down with the PERS folks and say, like my pension from the Screen Actors Guild, I lost 30%. Are public employees willing to do that? But in the meantime, we have to provide all of these services. So I personally, and there's a lot of other things I could say about this, but I believe what we need to do is approve this and move forward. And unfortunately, I think the way that this is going to fill in is they'll start building these units. And in Norco, on our large lots, we are such a target. And it's upsetting because our zoning was created beginning in 1948. I wouldn't mind if somebody came along and said, I'm going to change your zoning and go through the process, the public meetings and things like that. But what's happening is we're just having our local control erased. And it's really, really frustrating. So I'm hoping this board today is going to vote for this increase, because the truth of the matter is right now the economy's good, but when it's not, we're really going to need this money. So that's all I have to say, Madam Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. Marietta.
Okay, so when we did the Nexus study, the updated Nexus study, we were asked to do exactly what we've done, which is lower some fees on the other side and then do a phased-in implementation. And that was agreed upon by the stakeholders. The higher housing price argument we had 17 years ago when this was first adopted. And, you know, bottom line is what causes the higher housing market and the price of the ultimate price of the house is the market. They're not going to charge $400 less because they didn't have a TUMP fee. If they can get $450, they're going to get $450. What happens with all these fees is they get wrapped into a CFD, and those things get set aside and then put into your taxes when you get your property tax bill at the end of the year. So that $400 is actually spread out over a long period of time. We're being asked to trade there's lots of reasons for the housing crisis, and we're being asked to trade our ability to build roads for the potential that maybe this will somehow stimulate a mass building of houses, and that's not going to happen because that's not the ultimate cause of the housing crisis. Nobody wants to do anything about CEQA. When they pay thousands and hundreds of thousands of dollars for environmental studies and then get sued anyway, if they don't fix that problem, that's going to be a problem too. So land costs, mortgage rates, all of those things are part of why we have a housing crisis. We can't get farther behind. And in fact, if we did get farther behind and didn't build these roads with this money, they wouldn't be able to get through CEQA because they wouldn't be able to say, you know what, they would have to say this is not this is having too much of an environmental impact because you don't have any roads. So I think we need to go ahead and do that. And with that, I'll go ahead and I'm ready for the motion. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Second.
Whoever's fast on it.
San Jacinto will get in there.
Yeah, we're waiting for it to come up. Okay, we have a first from City of Banning and a second by City of Murrieta. Please vote.
We do both at the same time.
Yeah, we're doing both at the same time. And that is approved with 13 yeses and 5 noes. Thank you. So normally we see. With that, we'll go on to, thank you, colleagues, for your interest and good discussion. We'll go on to item 7, report from TAC Chair Chris Lopez.
Thank you, Chair. Just a couple items from the group. As you all know, the last meeting was canceled due to the League of California Cities. We're looking forward to our next TAC meeting on November 21st. That's all, Chair.
Okay, item 8, report from committee representatives. Are there any SCAG Regional Council or Policy Committee representatives who'd like to provide a report? Hearing none, we'll go on to AQMD. Ben?
Nothing major to report other than we did have another chair and vice chair, and for the 13th time our chair, Chairman Burke, was reelected as chair, and for the third time I was elected vice chair. So.
Thank you. I know how that goes. WRCOG, Brian.
Madam Chair, our next meeting is next week, and Michael Goodman is going to be representing us for that meeting.
Okay, thank you. SAPA OWA update, Rusty Bailey.
Nothing on SAPA to report, at least, but I would like to ask any SCAG RC members that are going on Thursday to stick around afterwards to talk about the vote that's occurring on Thursday in terms of the RENA methodology. So anybody interested in the RENA methodology, especially RC members or other SCAG committee members, that if you wouldn't mind sticking around after the meeting, we can talk more about that, and I'd be glad to answer any questions on the process. It is coming to a vote this Thursday in terms of methodology. It goes to the HCD for 2 months, and then they send it back with any amendments that they want to see in SCAG's methodology. Chris, is there anything else? I was successful in asking SCAG to add another option. Right now, there's only one option for the RC to vote on. It was staff's recommended one option. They did whittle it down, as you all know, from 4 options to that one option, but the RC hasn't, the regional council hasn't really seen much unless they wanted to delve into it, like us on the subcommittee and or the CHD committee that heard it last, I think it was last Monday. So this is the first time that the RC as a body is seeing the option in front of them. And so I've successfully added a second option for them to compare it to, which I think is much better in terms of anti-sprawl than the staff recommendation. Chris, anything else you want to add? Yeah, so we'll talk about it after the meeting if you're interested. Thank you.
Thank you. Sandag, Crystal.
We had an interesting meeting. This is our last meeting before January, so this was the last one. We met the Honorable Mario Figueroa, Deputy Consul General of Mexico. The ongoing fires down just south of the border are affecting not just California, but also Mexico, and they have asked for and put together the Mexican Red Cross Collection Center. They're in desperate need of things like food, diapers, formula, soap, liquids, that kind of thing, personal care needs, and we have put this in the agenda packet for you to help donate if you can. They're desperate for help. We also learned that during the border crossings and trade statistics that there were 1,100 let me see, it's 111 million people traveling across the border from the south to the north in a year. It ranks number 2 export for the United States is Mexico. So it's really some interesting statistics. And it's also interesting that they're really wanting, at Sandag, they're really wanting to work with Riverside County on transportation. And they have reached out to me, and I'll get them in contact with whoever here needs to be gotten in contact with. But they want to start that communication and build things that we actually need that we can work together with them on, because they're not getting that communication with other parts of Riverside County. They asked if I might be able to help facilitate that. So I'll get that in to appropriate people.
Thank you. Item 9, report from Executive Director.
Just real brief, nothing to report other than in hearing the reports from the Executive Committee members. A big thanks from all of us, for all of you stepping outside of just your city and county duties and to the regional agency duties, and then as WRCOG appointees to all these other committees. We really appreciate that. And also special thanks to Mayor Bailey for spearheading hopefully what will be a successful alternative in the RENA allocation methodology. I know that's been a lot of work, and we'll hope for good things on Thursday.
Thank you. Item 10, items for future agendas. Anybody have anything for future agenda? I guess everybody's winding down for the end of the year. We have Menifee.
Thank you, Madam Chair. You know, in light of the discussion today, good discussion, Councilmember Bash, and as Chris said, stuff costs more. I'm curious about why it's costing more, and I'll give you an example. In my real job, I do civil engineering and land planning, and we deal with infrastructure, roads, bridges, land development, costs like that. And I'm starting to see a lot more stringent, maybe overreaching standards from agencies like Caltrans. And I'm just curious, you know, if there's an opportunity here for this group to partner with an agency like the BIA to look into some oversight of some of these standards. For example, in Menifee, we have the Scott Road overpass. And about 10 years ago, that bridge was completely designed, ready to go, shovel ready. But when we pulled the trigger to build it, Caltrans made us go back through the engineering and made us go and update it with their new standards. That came to the cost of about an extra $2 million. So I know some of these costs are driven by things like earthquakes and, you know, all these other reasons. But sometimes they're just a betterment for no reason at all. So I'm just wondering if there's an opportunity for this kind of discussion here or at the Public Works TAC, where we might have a conversation about getting together regionally and lobbying against some of these standards that continue to be upgraded for sometimes no reason. So I'm just curious if there's a second for that.
Thank you.
Do we need a second, or?
Yeah.
No, I think we can definitely agendize this for our next Public Works Directors Committee meeting and see if we can start some dialogue on that.
Thanks.
Great. Okay, with that, general announcements. Calamasa.
Thank you, Madam Chair. A couple of SCAG-related things. Rusty, I'd be more than happy to support your meeting on Thursday. Just make sure we get back on the train in time to get home, all right? So, secondly, Arnold, you gave us, are you still here, Arnold? Thank you. You gave us this notice for the 10th SCAG, and I'm going to assume that is our SCAG meeting. Is that correct? Just don't come up here, just nod. Thank you very much. And third and last thing, I bet tomorrow the supervisors get the correct time on the clock. So thank you so much.
Utica Valley.
Thank you, Madam Chair. A couple of announcements. Our Healthy Utica Valley Veterans Recognition Celebration will be at the Crestmore Manor tomorrow morning. And also later that afternoon at 4 o'clock, the Healthy Utica Valley will have a small business summit and expo. And that'll start at 4 o'clock until 6:30. And then from 6:30 to 7:30, we'll have a business mixer. Also, the new city manager for our city will be in place by hopefully the first of the year, if not sooner. He's been selected. There was a little bit of a mix-up in the first selection that we had. I won't go through the details, but he had to back out for personal family issues. And the issue about the fires, we had a couple of fires this past week. And I have to say that the Hill Fire, which was the first one, we had no homes lost. We did lose a little bit of, there's a small motel on Granite Hill at Pedley that got some damage. It did not burn down, but there was some damage there. None of the homes at the mobile home park were lost. The news indicated on the 46 fire that we lost homes. We didn't lose any homes. There was a home that was damaged. I went out there and surveyed the damage and stuff. One car did burn. We lost a car, which actually was parked right next to the house, but the house did not burn. And then about 300 acres on that, 600 acres on the Hill Fire, a little over 600 acres. And but we lost no homes in either fire. So I just wanted to indicate that the county fire, which we contract with, CAL FIRE, did an excellent job in maintaining and saving homes. So that's all I have. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you. And I'd like to add, City of Hemet is having their State of the City on Thursday from 7:30 to 9:30 at McSweeney Farms. If you're interested, you can contact the Hemet San Jacinto Chamber. And also a veterans event on the 11th at Gibble Park. Starts at 9 a.m. We'll start putting up our 1,746 flags around Gibble Park. That'll start this next weekend. They'll be up for a week. It's something to be seen. And we hope that some of you can attend. And we have NARCO again.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Chatty Cathy today. As you know, we're home to the NAVC base, which most people live in Riverside, and every year, 13 years, and I think Aaron's been to every single one of them, and I think a lot of people have. But it's December 7th, 10 a.m. If you're going to drive on, have a license, and have your registration. It's a huge event, and this is the first year we're looking for Pearl Harbor survivors, or we're looking for the families of Pearl Harbor survivors. We have Kelly McKeague coming in, who, as I've said before, is the director of the MIA POW Recovery Unit. We have flyovers. We actually have a Japanese Zero. We have all kinds of things that we're doing, and I would really love it if a lot of cities could come to it, because that is a regional resource. The people that work there, it's one of the largest, literally one